I'm walking to the gym, but just had to think about what the hell is going on in Canada.
Canadian homes are disgustingly unaffordable.
The cost of living, it's too much. The wages are staying the same. I can't afford to move out. I'm 24 and I'm embarrassed that I can't move out. I can't leave my toxic household.
Our rent is $3,300 a month. $3,300 is absolutely not affordable.
My bills are $2,701. My income is $2,710. So at the end of the day, this is me because I worked 8.5 hours a day, knowing that it's not enough, that it won't be enough. Fuck you, Ontario.
There's been times where my parents have heard me say, I don't want to live this life anymore. And I'm not suicidal. It's not a mental health thing of I want to kill myself. It's, what's the point if all you do is suffer? If you can't get past this, then what was the point? And I know that was like the mental health aspect of it, because there is light to say I can get out of this. But that's what it does to somebody. It starts making you feel like you can't get out of the situation, that there's no hope. If things keep going up and my wages don't go up, I'm not going to get through this.
Everywhere we look, we see the issue without truly realizing it happening. When you shop at the grocery store, look for housing, or buy everyday items, you are experiencing it firsthand. So how are people holding up with the constant increase in cost of living across Canada? Stephanie Finlayson, living in Woodstock, Ontario, is a single mom trying to get by these difficult times. Despite working a full-time job making $21 an hour, she only has $9 left over after paying her rent, cell phone, heat, gas, and insurance bills. There is barely any money left for her to spend on food or the occasional gifts. Steph recently went viral after posting an emotional TikTok speaking about her economic situation.
I left a relationship. I had to come and move in here on my own and it's like be a single income household. And that's when I realized that the economy was the way it was. My savings were dwindling away. My credit cards were racking up. Let's say the beginning of September. I was starting to feel a crunch in my bank account. This is before doing the TikTok, before losing my job, before anything. I decided to write out my list and figure it out. And that's what led to the TikTok, was the whole realization of when I wrote these bills out, there was $9 a month left.
Recently, Steph was laid off from her job and is looking for new job opportunities.
I got laid off on the Wednesday, and about a week later is when the rad went in the car. So now I have to carry around coolant and top it up all the time. I can't go long distances. I can't apply for work outside of town where I can expand to higher paying jobs. With my limitations of not having a vehicle, I've had to resort to converting my walk-in closet to an office and starting to look for work-at-home jobs.
This is where Steph stores her canned foods. To save on food, she will freeze produce to hold onto it for longer, as it tends to go bad quickly. This is the grocery store that Steph visits to buy food and household items throughout the week. She always makes sure to look at the dollar per gram value to get the most of her money's worth. Something that many Canadians are having to do now with the rising prices of food, which rose 10.4% in Ontario last year.
It's probably the biggest struggle is grocery shopping. You make a list and then pick and choose what you need off of it the most.
In all of 2022, the overall CPI, also known as the Consumer Price Index, which measures the price change in consumer goods, rose nearly 7% according to Statistics Canada. Not to mention, grocery prices rose 8.5% in July. In the last 6 months, the average rent prices went up nearly 9%.
As you saw in my car at the end of the day of working a job, you're a blubbering mess. You're like, you don't know how to compose yourself. You don't know how to go home and put on your happy face and go cook a meal. And how was your day? It was okay. You know what I mean? Like it was hard to thrive and to be happy, but like you'd have your meltdowns and in your car or whatever at the end of the day, and then you'd put your mom face on or your social face on, and then you go do it.
I have no extra expenses, no bills.
Her TikTok video reached over 2.6 million views, and her story reached news networks and even the House of Commons, something that Steph wasn't prepared for. She received messages from Canadians to show that she wasn't in this battle alone, and that many were struggling as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's too often somebody can say they posted a TikTok, ended up on the radio, the news, had news articles written about them, just based on saying that you were struggling in the economy. Like it's crazy.
Michael Courant is a fourth-year journalism student at Toronto Metropolitan University. He moved back from Toronto to his parents' home in Mississauga due to the expensive cost of living.
Everyone's ultimately like, just because rent stuff's so expensive, you're living kind of paycheck to paycheck, especially doing minimum wage jobs. So yeah, anyone that I knew that lived down here, including my roommates, you'd know that also just all their money was going to living in this space, and any friends I had as well, so that lived down here. If things were cheaper and just more accessible, you definitely wouldn't have to work as much.
In March, there were nearly 2 million visits to food banks, a 32% increase from last year, according to Food Banks Canada. We visited Allen Gardens Food Bank, where the owner, Meryl Warden, told us the food bank in Toronto is visited by people from all over Ontario.
We feed 1,100 to 1,200 people in 2 days, Thursday and Friday. Okay, we get 13 skids of food from Daily Bread, but that is not enough because the increase of the clients. So we have to take the money that we get donated to us to purchase food. Before the COVID hit, we were serving maybe 600 people. And then after the COVID hit, it was like, I can't even explain it. It was, like somebody just punched you in the gut. When all of these people start showing up, it's like, oh my God. This food bank, this organization is a family. We work here as a family. But this is not getting better.
My wife and I are both artists that live in, downtown Toronto. So the food bank is like a really important part of our structure, my wife and I, our structure for our weekly or monthly survival, So it's really become something that we've relied on, and I can't even imagine, as things have changed in the last couple of years, if I didn't have this as something that's part of my kind of system that I could kind of lean on. And it's hard to imagine really how I would be still.
Meryl expressed frustration with the government for not providing funding to the food bank, leaving her to rely on private investors instead. They are the ones keeping the place from collapsing.
Every year we're seeing a 60% increase on what's happening, on people coming to the food bank because they do not have enough money to buy food. Every year. It's not like 1 year it's okay and the next year it's going, no. Every year it's going up. 40%, 60%, soon it's going to be 100%. Government knows this. You have organizations into the government, they know, but they're not doing nothing.
One of the volunteers at this food bank is Ruzbe Malikshayan, a refugee from Iran. He's been living in shelters from the moment he moved here in 2016.
I'm waiting for the housing, but it's so long time I'm in the waiting list because I registered about the housing information 2018, and I'm waiting for the change this situation. When you don't have a place, this is so hard, and when you are alone in the one country, and I don't have a family, anything here. And this is so hard. My life after the came here like a tragedy for me. Maybe one day I will write my story.
To help better understand the current economic situation, I sat down with John Isbister, an economics professor working at TMU since 2015. He explains the dilemma is when wages increase, so does the cost of living. He says that people are either helped by inflation or hurt by it.
We've got a lot of people who are struggling to make ends meet and sometimes don't make ends meet. The gap between the rich and the poor has gotten bigger. And another way of putting that is that the increase in national income, and there's been a lot of it, almost none of it has gone to low-income people. It's all gone to high-income people. You'd like to think that a rising economy pulls people up from the bottom. But in the last 50 years, it hasn't been.
I do not understand what the federal of the provincial government is doing pertaining to housing. I don't understand.
The teeter-totter of the balance of cost of living and wages is so out of whack that if the government could step in and just somewhere do more of this.
Or if minimum wages were actually more closer to living wages as opposed to just bare minimum of what they have to pay you, then yeah, it would definitely be easier to actually survive in the city and actually have maybe one job that can easily pay for a simple room, right?
We reached out to politicians and government officials, but we have yet to hear back.
I really hope that me sharing my story gave people inspiration to speak up. If you're suffering, don't do it alone. I don't think there's a person that I've spoke to. Once you open the door, there's not a lot of people out there walking around like me saying, can't pay my bills. But there's a lot of people out there that if you open the door to them and say, hey, I'm struggling, how are you doing? They'll probably look at you in the face and either cry or just sigh, or, maybe they're okay, but a good percentage of them are going to look at you and say, I understand, we're struggling too.
For Steph and many others, the increase in cost of living is only making it difficult for lower-income people to continue surviving. There are endless solutions being proposed to try and solve this crisis, but only the future will reveal if their stories will create real change. For TMU's documentary unit, I'm Talia Saley.